Collins, please stay with us as we move to our next story. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi has said the One China principle is key to stability across the Taiwan Strait, reiterating that Taiwan has always been part of China. He urged the international community to stand firmly against Taiwan independence, saying that consistent support for the One China principle guarantees peace in the region. Wang also raised concerns about Japan's stance on Taiwan, warning against intervention and highlighting historical sensitivities linked to past militarism. He said the Taiwan issue is China's internal affair and a core national interest, rejecting any efforts to create two Chinas or separate status for Taiwan. Meanwhile, Beijing says more countries are aligning with its position on One China, which Chinese officials argue reflects broader international consensus. Let's in fact listen into what the Chinese Foreign Affairs Minister had to say on this.
任何在国际上制造两个中国、一中一台的图谋，都注定要失败。民进党当局顽固坚持台独分裂立场，这是破坏台海和平稳定的祸根乱源。事实一再证明，国际社会反对台独分裂的立场越鲜明，坚持一个中国原则的立场越坚定，台海的和平稳定就越有保障。台湾问题是中国的内政，是中国核心利益中的核心，这一红线不容逾越和踩踏。我们绝不允许任何人、任何势力把80多年前早已光复的台湾再次从中国分裂。
Now, Collins, of course, we've seen a massive movement of US military assets from Asia and from all around the world into the Middle East for this war. How have the Asian allies of the US reacted to this, and do you think that China could perhaps take advantage of this moment in time to make a move on Taiwan or perhaps an area in the South China Sea?
Well, definitely we have seen, how this presents a great opening and opportunity, of course, for China to move into Taiwan, to take advantage of this, again, distraction for the US. And of course, they have pondered upon this, but I think it will be a huge strategic mistake for China to do so, underestimating the resilience and the reach and the volume of the capacity and capability of the US forces, especially under the helm of the Trump administration, especially under the new renewal of readiness and efficacy under Hegseth's leadership of the entire US power gap and power volume. Of course, power projection and the lethality of this reach. And of course, also one of the main prohibiting factors will be the upcoming visit by President Trump to China. And that sets the ultimate tone and the ball is on the court of Beijing now to reset ties and to present a much more positive narrative to fix the gaps and things that have been of great concerns between both powers. And I would argue that that also stands in the way for China to do so. Of course, also seeing how the efficacy, the lethality of the US forces in Iran now, of course, on the back of what has happened also in Venezuela a couple of months ago. So all these have again served as the limiting factor for China to do so. And again, there's another compelling factor also that there's simply no capable, there's simply no capacity for the Chinese forces under the PLA to conduct such a complex operation on Taiwan for now, although it has been testing the waters for the past couple of years now in terms of blockading the island and forcing any kind of scenarios. Now that also Japan is also joining the fray. So this statement by Wang Yi is primarily meant for the Japanese audience, of course, under the Takaichi administration, that Taiwan still remains the ultimate red line. There'll be there'll be consequences for what Japan is trying to do here in Taiwan. And of course, the Japanese equation is critical here. And the ability of Washington to defend Taiwan also rests mostly on the capacity, the physical presence of the US forces in Japan, including the bases in Okinawa. the logistics, the airfield in Japan, the support system, of course, the involvement of the Japanese self-defense forces in terms of complementing the overall efficacy of the US forces. So Tokyo still remains one of the most important ultimate factor here on Taiwan scenario. So hence, we have seen how, prior to this visit by President Trump, I think Beijing and through Wang Yi has tried to set the tone here to send a very strong narrative messaging to both Washington and Tokyo that despite the overtures, despite the readiness to host President Trump and to reset ties between both powers, there is still this ultimate red line, which remains the case of Taiwan being the ultimate red line for China, that both Tokyo and Washington should and being warned by Beijing that they can't cross this red line of the ultimate pride and necessity for China.
Mm-hmm. Collins, Chong-Yu Keat, thank you so much for joining us today on the show. It's been great to hear your thoughts. Now to the United States, 6 suspects have been taken into custody after a suspicious device was placed outside the residence of Zohran Mamdani. The arrests were made by law enforcement following reports of explosives being thrown near the site earlier today. Regardless of the suspect's intent, the surrounding area was immediately cordoned off by the New York City Police Department to ensure public safety. Furthermore, the device is currently being analysed by the bomb squad to determine its composition. However, no injuries or physical damage have been reported in connection with the incident. Meanwhile, a full investigation into the potential motives behind the targeting of the official's residence is being conducted by federal authorities. And that's all that we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.